GG Alcock, you've brought another entrepreneur. I've read the story. Thank you for sharing it with me. This is a crackerjack. How did you meet with Nthabiseng Sejake, who's today's featured informal entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I guess the big thing for me is when we're looking at the different entrepreneurs, is almost showcasing the range of different type of entrepreneurs, not just spaza shops and spaza shops. So, and bakers. But one of the huge sectors is the backroom rental sector. I wrote about it being a 20 billion rand a year sector. And the tendency is to think that backroom is like, a whole family crammed into a little backroom, that's got no facilities or anything like that. And far from it. I mean, if you look at South African General Household Survey figures, 18% of our households in South Africa today are one-person households, and another 23% are two-person households. So what we see is that actually households are growing faster than the population. So actually, it's like a bit like the market. IKEA, works towards supplying of small households in smaller kind of flats. And this is actually most of the back rooms are this kind of fairly sophisticated, nice units. And that points to this growth then of backroom rental needs and stuff. And so this story is just fantastic because it's not only... it's just, I love Nthabiseng has fought to get financing for it. It just shows he has this massive sector. She's got a thriving business, struggling to get financing for it as she tries to grow that business. But it also just indicates also someone who's moved from a formal kind of environment into the informal economy.
Once again, because you can see the opportunities. But Nthabiseng, reading your story as GG briefed me beforehand, entrepreneurship's not unknown to you, given your mom's profession.
Yes. My mother actually ran a business. It was a small spaza shop, and then she had a tavern on the side. So basically, we grew up actually around business. So that actually grew me to be the person that I am today. So
when did you start working with her? Were you very young?
From a very young age. Mm-hmm. From a very young age. I think we were helping her from the age of 5-6 years. So basically, business has been part of my life for like forever. Even currently, she's still running. She just turned it into a bottle store. So my nieces and nephews and her grandchildren are all coming to be part of that. So I've already seen my niece, who is now also an entrepreneur. So it plays a very big role in our life.
That's interesting, Gigi. It just shows what a global phenomenon this is. If you are built into a family that talks about business, then you go into business.
Yeah, it's also about those role models, and I think in many ways, the for me has always been in writing my books is about actually producing people like this who are role models, who make other people then say, "Wow, look, there's an opportunity as a spaza owner or a tavern owner or backroom rental owner and stuff like that." And we have far too few of those role models, and you just see the impact of having a role model either in your family or in your community who showcases this. It's not about lining up and getting a job, but actually, you can do this kind of thing.
But you did go into the formal sector.
Yes. I'm actually still there. Remember, because of it's very hard to get funding, you need a salary actually to acquire these loans. So right now, you can't really afford to just do the rental, even though it's growing very, very well. Gigi can just attest to that as well. Because right now, I've just turned one of the buildings as well into a student accommodation.
Where did you start, though? What was day one?
Day one, I had a passion for property. So I was very lucky. I work for the municipality, so I got to deal with a lot of property and stuff. So it just grew interest from there, and then I started looking for finance. I was lucky. I found a company called Umastandi, which is it works with turf. Basically, they fund for backroom accommodation. That's how I started. Then they did my first building, and then I was lucky enough.
Do you want to maybe explain what your first building was?
Yeah. It's actually I have my own house that I'm living there on the property. but it's got 14 units on it. So the 14 rooms, each has got washing machine connection, DSTV, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got its own bathroom and shower, it's got braai stand upstairs and downstairs. And it's got also separate parking from me. So those tenants that have cars have also got a parking there. So it's quite a very safe
Where
safe
is
place.
it?
In Proteas Lane, extension 12.
Have you got a number of stands?
I've got 2. Like I said, the other one is student accommodation. They only started this year. And then I just recently bought another property in Penville, which I'm also converting it into a student accommodation.
But the one in Protea Glen?
They're both in Proteas Lane. It's extension 12 and extension 7.
Is it
But her primary house is one stand
that
she's attached onto the back of the house, this double-story backroom accommodation.
How does that work from a formal legal?
Yeah.
Do you have to have plans passed?
Yeah, you have building plans.
Okay.
Yeah, that you submit to the municipality, and then
So it helps that you work there because you understand how the system works.
Yeah, I understand how it works, and you have to actually make sure that you don't, because remember with financing you have to have all these things ready. So you just get formal plans, you apply for the funding, and then you start building. So once you're done with building, then you start paying off your loan.
So this is interesting. So you have a home in Protea Glen.
Yes.
Your idea was you're going to build rooms
Yes.
that you could rent out.
Yes.
But to get the money to put the structure in,
Yes.
to build those 14 rooms,
Yes.
you have to get that somewhere, because if you saving it, it would take quite a long time to get there.
As I stated, I was very lucky to find Umastandi. That's
Umastandi.
Umastandi, yes. Basically, what they do is they give you funding for backroom accommodations. So I started with them, and basically they also help you with construction as well, construction payments. So you also pay them after you've actually received your tenants. So it gives you a bit of a break while you're building, unlike starting to pay a loan once you've received it. So it was actually, I was very lucky to have them.
Now, that's interesting, because again, looking through the story there, TUHF,
yes, that's yes.
They raise money in the formal sector. They have notes listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and they've been around for a long time.
For a very long time.
So do they work through the?
So one of the
yes, it's
divisions.
a division. Yes, it's a division
Is
within
Mastandi.
TUHF. Yes.
How did you find out about that?
I love Googling. I love knowing things. So if you're passionate about something, you'll always go and research on a daily basis.
But you started with the banks.
Yes, I started with the banks. Obviously, it's rejection.
Wow,
rejection.
obviously.
All of them, it was rejection. And now
If you got a salary, you got a job, you.
But remember, when it comes to qualifying, not your normal banks, traditional banks, they don't actually fund like property development. So it's very hard to find such companies. So you go there and say, I've got this idea. Even now, you can go to any bank and say, no, I've got this rental income that is coming in, an extra maybe, let's say 30,000. I've got my salary, please give me a loan of about $1 million. I've got this. They'll decline you.
Why? That sounds.
I think the problem is that the business model.
They're saying they don't use projected amounts.
Yeah. They don't understand the business model. It's informal or township, and so they kind of don't recognize it. And I mean, you were saying that they let you finance a Mercedes, but
yeah, true.
Serious?
I went to go apply for Mercedes-Benz, and I think it was about 1 M, and approved.
That's approved, but they won't let you build accommodations, which gives you money.
What gives me money?
I think somebody's missing the point.
And I mean, we're talking she's renting out 14 backrooms for between 2,500 and 3,000 rand each. Now she's got a second property with 12 backrooms, which she's renting out for 9,000 rand per room for student accommodation. Those are furnished and equipped and so on. So, I mean, you're talking 12 times 9,000 and 14 times, call it 2,500. It's a serious income, and wanting to grow that business, and yet it's not recognized.
Come on, GG, there's an opportunity here.
Of course, I keep saying
Big
this about this
opportunity.
whole market.
But what about TUHF. They're
think
in
they
the
do,
market
yeah.
of helping to
Yes,
to do that.
yes.
So you got it through one of their subsidiaries, but
Yes.
can you not go back to them and get more?
No, I'm currently busy with them right now. The only challenge is that you need to have a certain capital, certain percentage. That, let's say they give you about $1 million, they'll ask you to come with about 20% of that. So that's the only challenge. But otherwise, they are the best.
But if you've got students living in Soweto,
Yes.
surely it would be a better idea or another idea to have similar accommodation. You've proved the model.
Yes, yes.
Closer to where the campuses are.
Yes, hence that's why I said I just bought another property in Penville. So it's like 2-minute walk to UJ.
Okay,
So that's the one whereby I'm currently busy with building plans. I was showing Mr. G here. It's going to be a 3-story building. So I'm still trying to get finances right now. It's going to be housing about 31 students. So
But what about Wits and UJ in
town.
Yeah.
As I stated, I work with, when I look at the market value in Soweto, the market value is low. So remember, it's very hard to get finances. So you have to look at something that is the market price is low, and then you can actually take a building loan. So if I were to buy in town, obviously the house will be about 1.5 alone, and then to build. Do you understand?
So it's not the the economic proposition as it would be, which again shows you the potential.
But I think, outside of student accommodation, I think that the student accommodation has the benefit of government paying through their NSFAS kind of funding and stuff. But the size of the the individual accommodation outside of students, working class people, is probably bigger in terms of numeric numbers in that space. And where's that? That's in the township. And I think Nthabiseng was saying that she's got one guy who drives an X6 who's renting from her, and another person who moved from the suburbs and is paying off their car now because they're renting in backroom and Protea and so on. So I think we underestimate the level of working people, or even people informally employed, people like teachers and nurses who've moved from wherever they live to work at a school far away, who then rent that. So really, really big sector, and outside of just student accommodation.
Do most of the people who rent from you work in Soweto, work nearby to
Yeah,
where
they
their homes are?
work nearby. The furthest is Johannesburg, but most of them is like your Roodepoort, or they nurses, others are reporters and so forth. So they are mostly around. But you'll find, like Mr. G is saying right now, that most of them will come from, let me say, Limpopo, and they just found a nursing job here. So they can afford basically to pay the rent. You understand? And some of them is because of the inflation rate, and everybody can't actually qualify for a bond. So you find that a person is paying you well for 3-4 years, and is still with you.
And then works up to buying their own
out to buy their
home.
own home, yes.
What do the rooms sound like? Because I'm sure for some people outside, they'll say, yeah, it's like the old kayas that they used to have.
No. I actually build around my customers. I've stayed in a backroom before, so I know there are those backrooms whereby you were not able to even go and sit outside. Do you understand? You are only given that portion. So all my properties, I've got a braai area or entertainment area around whereby you can have visitors. I've got outside toilets and so forth. So I'm not just restricting you to your own room. I'm giving you the whole yard.
So what's your dream?
I would like to own a lot of these buildings. There's very great potential in the township. Moving out would be expensive to start, but if you look at the turnover, NSFAS is still paying me the same amount that they'll be paying in town. Do you understand? So I would love to grow. It's got a very big market, very, very big market.
And the frustration?
Besides financing?
Well, financing.
I think right now there's not a lot of frustration around property. I make things a bit easier because I don't work alone. I have companies like Botamaga Legacy who do my digital marketing. So I don't go out there and search for tenants and so forth. So I have them going out there and searching for tenants. So I work full time, But on weekends, I'm available for my business.
And you're utilizing local Soweto people to do your building, your cupboards, your marketing, and so on and so forth.
So the new property that you bought in Pimville, near the university.
Yes.
Take us through the steps so you buy the property, do you knock the house down and rebuild?
Yeah. Basically, right now, because I'm still in the process of accumulating funding, I've decided to just put it in. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. So minimum for UJ is that you have 6 beds. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it accredited for 6 beds while I'm getting the building plans and the finances in place. So hopefully when the building plans gets approved, then the funding will be, I can start the 3-story building.
So it's quite a formal process of having to go through the building plans and so on. You would have thought informal market, well, put up a structure in your backyard. I'm sure many people are thinking this way, because I certainly thought, well, okay, that's probably the easiest way into the informal market, but there's still red tape involved.
A lot.
Yeah, there is. But I think, look, there are obviously the ones that are informally built and stuff just added onto the backyard. But, I was chatting to some guys who builders of backrooms, and they said people have got fussy, they want to have tiled floors, proper, Italian tile floors. They want a beautiful ceiling.
They don't like sharing toilets.
Exactly. So
showers.
So you're not talking that kaya, as you mentioned, kind of thing. I mean, if I showed you pictures of them, they're really extraordinary. And the modern person is wanting that, and the owner of the house who's building onto that is having to get a proper builder who knows what they're doing, is having to plan it so that it's not just ramshackle and added on. And when they do cupboards and stuff, it's proper, like, very nice cupboards and proper electric connections. And most of them all have Wi-Fi. On the property connected up, people are expecting Wi-Fi. So you're talking a very different level. And I think you're seeing this across the board within the township or informal economy, this premiumization. Even you look at taverns, from sitting on a crate and drinking a quart to very fancy places. Even the spazas becoming more supermarket. So the informal sector, as it were, is not so informal anymore. And this is just an example of that kind of thing.
But why is it that the financiers are not waking up to this reality? Is it because they haven't visited? The way you're describing, this is a structure that could be anywhere. If what you've got there were sitting in Bryanston, say, there'd be no problem in finding funding to put it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, and I mean, Nthabiseng staying in the township and focusing on her business there, because she's saying township is where the business are, lower costs, easier to do business, easier to utilize local suppliers. The ecosystem works much better together within that kind of thing. She knows who to use. She doesn't have to randomly find a builder. Someone's referred that builder and stuff. So on the one hand, the people in the township are very comfortable that there's actually a better way to do business. But I think people outside of that, don't recognize the upside in terms of how big the opportunity is. But even more so, they see risk. It's like all township must be crime and of course.
But there are people who are living, some of your tenants are working in the bank.
Yes.
Why are they not being heard? They know what's happening. They can tell.
Exactly.
Surely.
Exactly.
You'd have thought.
I had a tenant who stayed with me for like 6 months. They're working at Harmony Mine. And these companies are acknowledging us. They're paying us directly to say, please keep this person in Joburg. They're just here for 6 months. You understand? So people do know. I'm not sure why the banks don't actually recognize us.
But that's interesting. So Harmony, as an employer of many people, thousands of employees, they, through their own corporate structure, have recognized that there's an alternative to perhaps the other places where they would normally put people up to live. I mean, if you start thinking of the potential that exists here, mining and some of those terrible places next to mines, can you imagine transforming that? A lot of people are paying a lot of money for bad accommodation there.
And that is why we need funding.
Yeah, and to
a
that funding
challenge.
thing, I mean, this is across the board. I've said that the biggest liberating factor is what people call development finance, which is in essence fairly small scale financing of informal businesses. And you look at how the Somalis been so successful. They've put money together within that group and they capitalize their business, they carry more stock and so on and so forth. South Africans are much more individualistic. But financing could completely open up the space, and we talk about enabling businesses, creating more business and stuff like that. But here's a very successful business model. Here's a person who, isn't relying on that business for an income, to feed themselves and put fuel in their vehicle, and yet aren't seen as that. And I think it's really about a case of changing the mindset around where those opportunities lie, and the township is there. Funnily enough, the people who don't live in the township don't recognize that. Actually, it's the people who are sitting there, and people say, well, do you think there's enough people looking for back rooms? Well, we start looking at the numbers I mentioned in terms of single households, and households are growing faster than the population. Of course there is, but there's no, kind of business case, I guess, that guarantees this, and people look for that kind of thing. So what happens is exactly what, like I was saying, and Bali before her, just carrying on, saying, you know what, we're just going to build this business and carry on through whatever resources we can get.
And at some point in time, things will normalize, or the reality. I had a very interesting chat with Miles van der Molen from SEME. Now you can imagine this guy. He's been, on the one hand, he had SAA that was being funded by taxpayers, so it was artificial. Then he had COMAIR, which was funded by creditors. He said for 7 years he waited for the market to wake up to the reality of what it is. And now he's quadrupled in size since COVID. So it's a similar kind of thing. It's almost like as an entrepreneur, you know that this is a crazy situation, but just hang in there and time will bring the reality there. But how do you feel when you see banking adverts say, come to us, we'll support you?
I feel cheated. I can say that. Because, like I'm saying, you're looking at one room, which has a guaranteed rent, because people are always looking for accommodation in Soweto. It's 2.5. Then you find that, okay, fine, now there's another business opportunity in student accommodation. That 2.5 now becomes 9,000. Do you understand what I mean? So the possibilities, they are endless. So there's a lot of growth. So I feel the banks should really look into this, because we've got bank statements to prove that this money is coming in. You understand? So for us to go out there and get rejected, it's really very frustrating. Very, very frustrating and demotivating at the same time. So hence you find that people in this line of business basically can't actually stop working, because basically your salary will help you attain certain loans to help you get where you want to get.
Is your business registered as a business?
It's registered as a business, yes.
So it's a registered business getting, is it 150,000 a month income coming in?
Students is about 91. And then for the rental, the residential, looking at about 35 to 40.
Okay, so we're talking about 140.
Yes.
You've got 140,000 coming in.
Yes.
That can fund quite a big loan.
Exactly.
But nobody wants to give you that loan.
Decline.
And what about the loan shocks?
Oh, I wouldn't want to go there. I wouldn't want to lose those properties.
It brings a whole new...
I wouldn't like to have a knife in my throat.
But I mean, the long-term thing is you don't want to stay in the corporate. This is where you want
this
to be.
is where my passion is.
And what's your business called? Remind us again.
B Evolution, which stands for Black Evolution. So I want to change how things are done. So hence that's why even my rooms, they're at a certain standard. I don't like the normal back room that we come from, whereby you have the landlady constantly knocking at your door and stuff. I give people privacy and I give them luxury that I would have liked to have at that time when I was staying in a back room.
Yes. So it's a back room, but it's much more an apartment.
It's an apartment. It's got everything inside. It's got everything inside and outside as well.
And you furnish it all? Or?
I've got sinks and wardrobes in all of them. And then the one that I furnish is a student accommodation. It's one of their requirements.
And that's fully furnished with
Fully
everything,
furnished.
heaters, Wi-Fi, that works.
GG, I'm still confused here because it seems as though any visionary banker or forward-looking banker would see the opportunity in this. The numbers don't lie, but there's got to be something else, some blockage in the system. Can it only be ignorance?
Welcome to my world. I cannot say. I mean, I think it is changing rapidly. I mean, there's no question that I mentioned last time there's land grab of retailers trying to get space in the townships. Even, the back rooms, more and more people are getting involved in that. But still, it boggles my mind that you still have this sense. And I called my book Gasinomics because I didn't want to use the word informal sector because it implies all this informality and unstructured and disorganized, which, as you can hear, is definitely not true of most of those sectors. So I just think it's still a lack of understanding and ignorance to it, and it's kind of limits the opportunity, the long-term vision, because by the time people enter into that, Nthabiseng is going to be in charge there. It's going to be very difficult for people to get involved, and there's this entrepreneurial spirit of saying, maybe I don't get funding, but I am still going to build this thing and I'm on my way somewhere really, successful.
Are you having competition yet? Gigi's talking about the land grab on the retailing side.
We do have competition because you find big businesses, people that can afford to have bigger apartments and so forth, but they don't have space. So that's our upside. Most of the vacant areas that are left in Soweto are quite small. So we have an advantage, and we know people are not even willing to pay that much for the same service. So I think that's where we beat them. So I think if given a chance, this can grow into something. I started this in, I think, 2017 on my third property right now. So you can imagine how this thing can grow if given the chance.
Nthabiseng Sejake, very good meeting you, and
Thank
we
you.
will be following your story, that's for sure. GG Alcock, as always, thank you for exposing businesses and entrepreneurship that is under the radar, but is really moving
Impressive,
ahead
yeah.
very rapidly. And I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.